What's up, world changers? It's Nathalie Nelson Parker. Do not expect your organization to grow without developing the leaders within that organization. I said it, you heard me. If you're ready to build and scale as a nonprofit or a small business owner, I need you to know that you will experience growth and change. And the trajectory of that growth and change is going to happen within not only your own development as the leader of that nonprofit or small business, but also the leaders within that growing organization. Hey, I'm Nathalie Nelson Parker, your strategist, and I help nonprofit and small business owners close the gap between where they want to be and where they desire to grow by helping them with capacity constraints and strategic solutions. And today we're talking about leadership development for growing organizations for world changers like you. Building leadership capacity is crucial for small businesses and nonprofits experiencing growth and change. This presentation is going to explore some of the practical strategies that I have learned the hard way to develop strong leaders who can navigate transitions while maintaining organizational momentum. And so I'm taking my L's and making them your wins by showing you some of the things that we've learned along the way. Hopefully, to accelerate your own impact so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that we made in the beginning. So, let's start with identifying leadership potential, right? You really have to, I like to say, be on your business and not in your business, right? So, there's going to be moments where you have to take yourself out of the day to day so that you can really observe. Watch for team members who take initiative, who are excelling in challenging situations, and also be sure to have 360 feedback, right? Gather insights from peers, subordinates, and supervisors so that you can identify those hidden talents, but also make sure relationally that you're supporting the needs of those potential leaders within your organization. And then I also want you to look at cross-functional projects, right? How can you make sure that you develop collaboration within your teams so that they are assigned collaborative tasks that reveal how do they coordinate, how adaptive are they, what are their influence and abilities, but also what are their strengths and weaknesses, right? And how can you see how they work within the cross function of projects and within your nonprofit or small business. So let's talk about developing future leaders. I think a lot of people, particularly as you're in the thick of growing a nonprofit or a small business, that sometimes we can be short-sighted, right? We only see what's right in front of us. We only see the next thing that we have to do. But it's so important to create a consistent pipeline and ecosystem within our business. And I would say within and beyond, right? And so it's so important as you are moving forward to reach back and as you are moving forward to have someone just ahead of you. And so you want to think about the health and success and the rhythm of your nonprofit and small business as always developing future leaders, right? Don't just live in the now. Learn from what you've been through and be able to help those come up as you are also learning from those who advise and are experts ahead of you. So I want you to think about what are some tailored training opportunities that become a part of the ecosystem, that become a part of the pipeline of your nonprofit or your small business. Create targeted development programs that address specific leadership competencies because that is how you innately and naturally create those strength opportunities within your nonprofit or small business. And then also think about mentorship. Yes, you are the CEO of your nonprofit or small business. Yes, you are building a championship winning team, but some of that does require a level of mentorship, right? Your leaders are only going to be as great as you are, or as you are able to find those who can mentor others. So pair emerging leaders with experienced mentors for guidance and wisdom transfer, right? You want to be able to, again, think about that pipeline. There is going to be a day when that leader that you have poured into, that you have developed, is ready to spread their wings and fly. So you want to make sure that there is a pipeline of them either training other leaders, or you're preparing a pipeline of other leaders who can transfer that wisdom and keep your nonprofit or small business rolling and scaling towards what's next for you. And then stretch assignments, right? Challenge high potential employees with projects slightly beyond their comfort zone, right? You only grow past the level that discomfort is applied. And so you want to make sure that you are strategically and intentionally stretching your leaders beyond the levels that they're comfortable. One, to make sure that they stay on their P's and Q's, but also for their own growth and development, right? Again, you want to make sure that the mission and purpose of your nonprofit or small business is also aligned with the mission and purpose of those who are serving it, right? And so develop them holistically in a way that they reach their highest potential, so that you can do well, but also so that they can do well for their own sustainability. All right, so let's talk about effective communication strategies. And this is something that I have learned throughout the journey. And no matter how clearly you communicate, you can also communicate more clearly, right? And also in various ways, right? And I've learned that um, in working with various clients, within various organizations, but also creating the type of infrastructure where communication can be effective, right? Sometimes we say something and we assume, okay? We assume that that was clear. But we also have to think about communication as cyclical, as something that is always happening, right? That is happening in various ways. That is happening not just with the words of our mouth, but in the different channels that we communicate, in the different ways we communicate the same thing. And so I'm so grateful that we have not, in the growth that we've experienced, we're not just growing in terms of effective communication, but the different strategies we employ to make sure communication is effective, that it is clear, and that people can really hold on to the messaging and stand in it and run forth with it. So when we talk about effective communication, again, I want you to think about it as a cycle. First, you have to be able to make sure that your messaging is clear. Okay, deliver consistent information across all channels and levels. So let me give you an example. When we first started, that might mean we'll have a weekly meeting. I would set clear goals, message those goals, and then people will never hear from me again until the next meeting. And then I'll be frustrated that things didn't happen. Can we be real? If you can't say amen, say out. Let's just be real. All right. We have since learned that that communication has to happen in several ways. So yes, it happens on a weekly meeting, but it also happens in our project management, where we're putting specific times, deadlines, and assigning what has been communicated to people. Then there are also going to be general feedback and consistent communication on those things on a daily basis within a Slack channel. The Slack channel is then organized based on the particular projects and things that we're communicating about. Then there is an agenda before the next meeting to follow up on those things that was communicated the week before, and then we get on the meeting. So do you see the difference between what was and what is? Now the communication is even more effective, but it's also deepened, and there's more accountability because you're seeing that same message that was once a week multiple times. And so then we can move on to make sure that there's more accountability in that. Active listening, right? You also want to make sure that you demonstrate understanding through reflective questions and empathy, right? Again, sometimes we make a lot of assumptions once we communicate that everyone gets it and that everyone understands it the way that you might have understood it or the way that you might have communicated. So it's really important to check in with your team. Hey, I noticed that this thing that we put in the project management is late. What's going on? What do you need? How can I help you? Right? give an opportunity and give space for empathy to better understand what is happening within that leader, to why whatever the purpose or goal is not happening, and give space for them to also communicate to give you more insights on how to support them and how to move the mission forward. Also, regular check-ins. Establish structured feedback loops for continuous improvement, right? So I'll give you an example of something that happened this week where something should have been done and it wasn't. I checked in with one of my team members, and this is the type of person that's a get it done person, doesn't make any excuses. And I realized there was something that wasn't being said. And so I asked, can we hop on another call, one-on-one? And on that call, I was able to ask the question, what's the bottleneck, right? Because nobody wants to rat out another team member. Nobody wants to drop any balls. But that check-in helped me to get more understanding. And then to ask another question, well, how can I support you in getting this done? What do we need to do? And then we were able to pivot and add another element to make sure that it can get done without stressing out that leader, without putting too much on another team member. And so it's really important, like, to have those moments where, yes, you have your team meetings, but also regularly check in with your leaders, so that you can be able to establish not only structured feedback, but also to go back to that active listening, have some more reflective questions and empathy, to be able to support them in the ways that they need to be supported. And then normalize constructive conversation in all directions. Feedback culture is so important, especially within our team. There are so many different team members doing different things, but it's really helpful for, like, our business development and strategic partners to say, hey, on social media, this might be helpful as I am talking to other potential partners and clients, right? That feedback culture and that cross constructive conversation allows us to eliminate silos, but also allows us to have a working group where feedback is important and we are leaning into the strengths of all of the different members on the team and helping them to grow in different areas that they may not have thought about before. All right. And then I want you to think about navigating organizational change. As soon as you think you got it together in your nonprofit or small business, as soon as, like, you feel you hit a place, listen, the time to pivot is going to happen. It's just a normal process of growing. It's the normal process of evolution. And so make sure that you set up these three things. Shared vision, right? Make sure that there is a clear destination to everyone so that they understand the mission, the goal, and the values. For us, the first 3 months of the year, my team already knows that's what we're going to do. We are setting our destination. I'm going to share with them the goals for the year. I'm going to share with them where we should be at every quarter. And then I'm even going to make it even smaller to every month and every week, right? That is so important. No matter how your organization changes, people need to understand, where are we going as a team, as a company, and what is the vision for you as a leader, so that they can catch hold onto that vision, believing it, and be able to work towards it in the various areas that they're assigned to. And then proactive response, addressing concerns before they become resistant. Again, that active listening, that feedback, all of those cycles of effective communication are important so that you can be proactive as the organization is growing in real time and changing in real time. And celebrate the progress. I have to say, friends, this is hard for me. But I love our amazing team. We have an inner team, it's 3 of us, and then we have an extended team. And it's really in the inner team where they say to me, like, you did a good job. And I'm like, no, we did a good job. It's because of you guys, right? And having those moments where we recognize the small wins, we maintain momentum, but we also give each other the space to say, hey, you did it. I appreciate you. That did not go in vain. Look at you winning over there. And for those of you who are like me, who, you're really hard on yourself, you're super competitive, you're always moving, and you don't take time, it is so important to take the time to celebrate the progress. If you can't do it for yourself, at least do it for your team so that they know that what they're doing is not in vain and it's really moving not only your nonprofit or your business forward, but you're doing something bigger than just that one person. You're making purpose and impact in real time. All right, so let's talk about maintaining momentum during growth, man. This is a thing, right? It's one, like, there's nothing worse than getting hung up on the last thing you did, but it is also important to make sure that that you're maintaining and sustaining your own momentum and growth. And so I think a part of that is making sure in each step that you're establishing not only the general long-term goal, but achievable short-term targets, right? Like have those clear milestones. If the goal is, $1 million, what does that look like on a quarterly basis? What does that look like on a monthly basis? What does that look like on a weekly basis? And then how do we on a daily basis check in on that? Right? That helps us to make sure that there's goal alignment, that every single individual on your team, every single individual, every single leader that you are developing is connected to the work of the organization with a sense of purpose and develop passion, right? Let me tell you something. There's a lot of things that you can teach. You can teach people different skills. You can teach people how you work. You can teach people a lot, but what you cannot teach is purpose and passion. What you have to do is cultivate that, right? What you have to do is develop that. And so it's so important that you create those clear milestones so that there can be goal alignment in everything that is happening within your organization. And once you do that, you got to have the recognition systems, right? Celebrate the achievements, advance the strategic priorities. We've been doing this on a particular project that we're working on, and I have to say, we were able to meet our goal 14 days in advance and set new goals and recognition systems to go over that goal. And so I'm not just saying this as something that is general. I'm saying this as something that is a part of the DNA of what we do at Civitas Consulting Group and Nathalie Nelson Parker brands. All right. And then let's talk about empowering accountability systems, right? If everything in your leadership development requires you, you are not doing a great job. You want your team to run with or without you. You want your team to almost be not a replica of you, but a representation, right? I'm going to say that, not just representation, representation. You want to be able to walk out the room and the message is the same. The goals are the same. How we work in integrity is the same. How we treat our clients is the same, right? And so that only happens when you empower your leaders through accountability systems, right? So set clear expectations. And when those expectations are not met, we're going to have a little conversation, okay? And if you can't get in line, this ain't the team for you. I'm just saying, guys. All right. I had to put that in there, right? Set the clear expectations, define the specific measurable outcomes for each role, document the key metrics so that people understand what success looks like in your organization, right? Don't make assumptions. Success in this role equals this. Make sure that's written, make sure that's spoken, and make sure whenever any conversation or communication happens that you are reiterating that. That empowers a leader to take accountability, but it also, which is really important to our way, is that it can be shown as impact and key results, right? We're not just doing this work because it's cute. We're doing this work because there is something that we're trying to do, and we need to be able to measure that, create alignment around that, and make sure that our daily tasks and strategic goals can be measured, right? The next thing is ownership culture, right? This is something that I think needs to be embodied as a CEO, right? Whether you're a CEO of a nonprofit or a CEO of a business, you need to be able to encourage your team members to propose solutions and not just identify problems. And that is something that you have to show. Something that I say all the time. We don't make excuses, we find results. We don't make excuses, we create solutions. And that starts with me, sometimes taking accountability. Hey guys, I thought if we did this, this would work. It did not. I take full responsibility. We're going to pivot. And this is what I think we should do. What do you think? Right? And then allow your team members to also take ownership and say, yeah, I agree, Nat. I think we should do this. But if we do this, we need this, right? Create the space for autonomous decision making within defined parameters, right? So that doesn't always mean that the decision that is being made might be the right one or it aligns with the vision, but at least there's conversation for you to be able to say, here's a good idea. What about this? Right? Implement those regular ownership reviews where team members present their initiative results. Like, hey, I went with it. Thank you for supporting me, guys. I went with this idea. This is what went well. This is the problems we're having. And I think we need to pivot. I'm open to some suggestions, right? What that shows is not only are you creating clear expectations, you're developing an ownership culture, but you're providing the necessary support, right? You're providing the tools, you're providing the information, you're providing the authority and the expertise needed for not only your company's success, not only your nonprofit success, but for your individual leader success, right? You're removing the barriers that prevent people from fulfilling their responsibilities. There's nothing that irks my nerves more than a leader that expects a team to do something that they're not willing to do. There's nothing that irks my nerves more than a leader expecting for leaders to perform within environments that are not motivating them, that is not pouring into them, that is not giving them the basic necessities that they need to survive. All right. And that is a reflection of you, right? So you want to make sure that you give your team everything that they need to succeed individually, but also collectively, and create the feedback channels to identify what those resource gaps are quickly. Don't just tell them what needs to happen. Ask the question, what do you need to feel supported? What do we need to be able to get this done? And make sure that when you ask the question that you're ready to provide those needs. Okay? All right. I'm teaching something good. If you can't say amen, say ouch, but you're going to get something today. All right. Let's talk about avoiding micromanagement pitfalls. Baby, if you feel like you can do everything yourself, you are not ready to grow. If you feel everything revolves around you, that is the quickest way to stop your own growth and maturation in your nonprofit or small business. So what does this look like? Number one, you have to make sure that you are creating effective delegation. Assign the outcomes rather than the task. Be clear about what success looks like, then step back and focus on the what and the why, and let your team determine the how. For those people, I'll give my husband and I for example. We do things very differently. I don't care how we get there. Just get there if you can. I'm not gonna tell you the how. I'm gonna tell you this is what I want. This is why we need to, and this is when it needs to be done. And how you do it, baby, make sure you love it, because that's your road to travel, right? So leaders who are overly concerned about the how and overly involved and getting into the minutia, that's too much. You need to build trust. You need to demonstrate you hired this person for a reason. You invited this person to be on your team for a reason. So you have to demonstrate that you have confidence in their ability. Allow them the space to creatively problem solve. Create the conversations and support that they can learn from their own mistake. Give scheduled check-ins so that you can, have those experience level conversation, but don't create anxiety in people, induce anxiety because you have anxiety or because you're overly concerned about, the small things. Right. And then lastly, you have to focus on the results, right? Evaluate performance based on outcomes, not work styles. Evaluate based on how they do what they do, how they get to where they're going, and not because they used a different approach or technique than you, right? They, what they say, there's many ways to skin a cat. You want to be able to accommodate different approaches because everybody doesn't need to be like you. Everyone on your team doesn't need to be the same way, right? You want to make sure that there's room for people to grow individually and within their own strengths and celebrate both destinations and the journey, right? Again, I don't care how we get there. Let's just get there if we can. And last, make sure that your personal development plans are created for emerging leaders, right? Don't just celebrate everybody on the top. You want to make sure that you create the type of environment where people can grow into your growing organization, whether that's a nonprofit or small business. So make sure there's self-assessment where people can identify for themselves their strengths, their weaknesses, their leadership aspirations through structured reflection. I always ask our team members, what is it that you like to do? What would you like to see? How can we support you? What are you working on outside of this, right? And that allows them an opportunity to be self-reflective, but also to self-assess. And it gives you a sense outside of just the silo of the working environment, what's going on with this leader and how can you personally develop them so that they can professionally show up even better for your organization. You also want to make sure that there's goal setting, create smart objectives for leadership growth with specific milestones. So I like to say in our organization, our team is focused really quarter to quarter. While they're focusing quarter to quarter, I'm already looking ahead to the next quarter to bring them into that next quarter, right? So creating SMART goals, I think a lot of people try to do this as a one-time thing, but I think it's something that is on a rhythm, right? And so you almost have to be totally developed in where you're developing your team and looking forward to bring them up. And that's really the sign of a visionary leader. And that also helps you to make more specific milestones for them, so that they can really acclimate into the growth of your organization because you yourself have embodied and acclimated to that as well. And then let's talk about skill building. You want to make sure that you're pursuing targeted learning opportunities that address their development. Purchase the course for them. Send them to that conference, right? Buy the lunch so that they can sit down with that particular expert. Do the things that are beyond the day-to-day that are going to allow them to close some of those skill building blocks or roadblocks so that they can grow individually, personal, to be able to grow within your company or your organization. And then progress review, schedule a regular check-in, evaluate growth, adjust plans, and don't be afraid to ask the question, what can I do better? How can we support you better? What are your needs, right? Don't just make it all about you extracting from the person, but really make sure that you're also supporting. Champions need support. Champions need an environment to thrive. So create that through your progress and regular check-ins. All right, friends, this is the end of the road for us. I hope this training has been helpful for you. This is so important for us as a company to share the lessons and the losses that we've experienced to help close the gaps with where you're going as a world changer in your nonprofit or small business. And so if you do, please make sure that if you like it, you appreciate it, make sure you like, share, comment, share it with your friends, share it with other organizations, or invite us to be a part of the growth that your nonprofit or small business is having and partner with us. So here are your key takeaways and your next steps. Number one, I want you to make sure that you're identifying potential, create systematic ways and strategic ways to spot leadership qualities within your team. And some of that might mean getting out of the day-to-day of your business and getting a higher view so that you can be able to be more reflective and observant to be able to do so. Number two, you want to make sure that you communicate through change, maintain transparent dialogue during transitions and growth phases, and make sure that that communication is cyclical, that it's happening in various ways through various platforms and through various means. 3, you want to make sure that you empower with accountability, right? Build systems that foster ownership while providing necessary support and being open to what is communicated to you, and embodying accountability so that you can develop accountability. And last but not least, foster continuous learning. Create a culture where leadership development happens at all levels, particularly personal, right? People are people, and people trust people. And so you want to make sure that you are invested in people's personal growth so that you can experience the professional growth that you want to see in your nonprofit or small business. Well, that's it. That's all. Says the clock on the wall. Thank you so much for being a part of the World Changer Nation. And I hope this has been helpful. Let us know. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and don't feel that we're too much away. You can reach out to us, and we'd love to be a part of the partnership of your own growth in your nonprofit or small business. Till next time.